Check, check, check. Whoa, I should just do the Q&A this close.
It's the ultimate chiropractic school Q&A with Steven.
Hello and welcome everybody to this Q&A session here. The other day on my Instagram, I had asked you guys to ask me some questions that you want answered here, and we got a lot of responses, so I'm gonna try to go through and answer as many of them as I can. And if you're watching this right now and you're like, Steve, I have some great questions for you, but I don't follow you on Instagram. What? You did it to yourself. I mean, so alright, cool, let's get started. I feel excited about this because my energy is already here and I'm gonna send it through the roof.
You guys silly? I'm still gonna send it.
So let's get started here. Let's one take Drake. I got the questions up here. We're gonna scroll down to the bottom. We're just gonna start from the bottom up because we start from the bottom. Now we're gonna be here. So let's start here. We got the first question from Freddie. What's up, Freddie? Thanks for asking the question. We got Freddie Ambriz 70. He said, how smart do you have to be a chiropractor? Smart enough? Next question. Swapna Shah. Hello, Swapna. She asks, is it possible for me to be a chiropractor if I am a female who is 4 foot 11 inches? And I'm sorry to tell you, Swapna, but you have to at least be 5 foot to be a chiropractor. No, of course, I'm kidding. Yes, of course you can be a chiropractor if you're 4 foot 11 inches. And not only can you be just a chiropractor, but you can be a badass, phenomenal chiropractor. Why? Because height, nor size, nor intelligence, Freddie, should deter you from being a chiropractor. There are four main things that come into my mind that you gotta be focused on if you wanna be a successful chiropractor. Number one is hands down your dedication that you have to becoming a chiropractor. Two is your work ethic. Number three should be your skill set. And number four is your level of experience that comes from developing your skill set over time. You focus on those four things, you'll be an amazing chiropractor, I promise you that. Whew, that's good right there. Let's keep it going. We're just warming up, fellas. All right, we got a question from Michaelson official. Said, oh boy, hit the link in my bio and tell me what you think of my debut single. All right, yeah, I want to hear your single. 100 grand, let's play it. Sun shines in the blue skies, no reason so right. Oh boy, me on my as a little kid. Dude, it flows, man. He's got flow. You got flow, Michael. Keep that up for sure. I used to make music when I was younger, so I still do make music actually, so that's cool. All right, we got a question from Alexis. That's just blank. It's not even a question. Dr. Ravi Patel, awesome. Keep it up. You too, Dr. Ravi. I see what you're doing. Keep that up. Question from Piano Girl 149. Hello, Bethany. She said, what majors can I do for my undergrad to meet chiro school prerequisites? So I get that question a lot, and I made a video on prerequisites. Definitely watch that where I go in depth with the prerequisites and stuff you need for school. But ultimately with the major that you need, it's not necessarily, there isn't a right or wrong major. So long as you get your prerequisite classes, you can still get into the program, similar to other health professional programs like PT school, med school. It's the same deal. However, there are certain majors that obviously are going to directly correlate to the chiropractic school program, such as exercise science, kinesiology, exercise physiology. I myself was an ex-phys major, so at every school they usually have a major like that. That's obviously the most direct route, but ultimately you want to be in a major that you yourself enjoy and that is going to prepare you for the next stage in your journey. Mike asked, how do you like AMPS? I love it. I got some questions from DC to B. She said, we'll go through these here. How many hours do you study in a day? Can you be my mentor? Of course I can. I'm Brazilian in my first year. First thing is, hello, much love to my Brazilian people. Some of you guys have reached out to me, so I see you guys, love you guys. And can I be your mentor? Of course I can be your mentor. In fact, I started a free mastermind program for students where we kind of go more in-depth stuff that we're talking about here on the channel. So if you want to be a part of that, you definitely should. Click the link in my bio. And how many hours do I study in a day? Ultimately, it kind of depends on what I got going on that week and what's going on in that day, right? However, my biggest thing that I've learned myself that's been a pitfall for me in my past that I've grown past is to be consistent with my studying. Meaning that I think what most students do, myself included, is, or it used to be, is you don't study in the beginning of the term, and then come midterm week you start cramming for your exams, and it's very stressful to do that, and you're not really learning your material, and then you do the same thing for your finals. It's not really overall, it's not a good thing for anything. So what I found works best for me is to be consistent with my studying from day one on in the term, and just carry that through the semester, where every day you do the work. And so that way you're not having to cram for the exams, you can learn things, and it's just a better pace for you. And I believe as well it directly correlates if you're scheduling your time and you're doing the work every single day, building that discipline of working every day, it's gonna better correlate in yourself and your professional career, you know? And so I average probably about, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours a day that I study, and it works well for me. And she asked a couple other questions here. She's a chiropractor at school too, awesome. She just started, so what's her advice for beginners? That's a loaded question, but I think whenever you're beginning school, I think the best thing is, number one, is to find your why, your chiropractic why. I made a video about that.
And in this video, I'm gonna be sharing with you guys my why.
My first video's reason being is because I think it's so important to have your why in chiropractic. Why are you starting the program in the first place? Why do you want to be a chiropractor? What kind of chiropractor do you want to be? Why are you on this journey, and what do you want to build and have happen in your life, and the impact you want to make? I think that's important that you have that first, before you even start school. Start to ask yourself that now. And the next thing is, once you're in school, it's like you just start to find things that resonates with your why. And I think all the pieces are gonna come around. The right people are gonna come around in your life. The right opportunities are gonna come around here in your life. And so just let that surround yourself. I think it's good to get involved in your school, join a club or 2 clubs that's gonna advance your growth. I highly recommend getting involved in a technique club and a business club. And then just again, you'll find out where you need to belong as you go through the program. But just get involved, work hard. Quote from Sid Williams, who's the founder of Life University. He says, "To give, to do, to love, to serve out of your own sense of abundance without expectations from others." If you live by that philosophy through school, I think you'll do very well. Next question, we got a question here about, do I like self-help stuff? I've used self-help ideas and books and stuff like that in the past. I think it's good for some people, especially people who are going through kind of a dark time in their life. I needed it at one point in my life, but I also think there is a dark side to the self-help world as well, so be careful with that. That's all I'll say there. We got a bunch of questions here from Lil Castelblanco, but we're gonna get through them all because I'm gonna answer all these questions out. So let's get started here. First question asked, how did I know what chiropractic technique to follow? I didn't know, I was just led. I think much like we're all led to become chiropractors, what school we end up, I think the technique and kind of how it molds yourself, it just happens. And again, once you find your why, it just molds around that. But how did I know? I think every chiropractic technique works. However, not every technique will work from the doctor. You know, I think not every doctor will work with the technique. So I think it's about figuring out what technique is gonna work best for you. And a lot of that's gonna come again from your ideas, from your philosophy, from how you learn and how you best apply the material to be able to help patients and serve the world through chiropractic. And so that's my answer there. Find out what works for you, and once you find that thing out, you just go full speed and you're on it and you learn it and you'll strive to be the best chiropractor you can possibly become. Next question asked was how I chose Life University. How did I choose to come to Life University? Really the biggest influence of me coming to school here, my decision to come to Life University, was all the doctors I shadowed. I asked all the chiropractors that I shadowed that were mentors to me and bringing me up I asked them all what school they would recommend me to go to, and none of them went to Life University. Well, one of them did, but the rest of them didn't. And they all told me to come to Life University. I took that as a big sign. The next sign was to ask these new docs that started to associate in one of the practices that I was working in at the time, and they also didn't go to Life University. And I had asked them, because they just graduated, if they could do it all over again, what school they go to and how they approach school. And they told me first thing was they would go to Life University. That was another flag there. And then I love the school. I went and I visited it. It just felt right. I was all about the mission and vision of the school. It's a great school, great program. It just felt right to me. And so I went for it. And I didn't look at any other schools. And now in hindsight, now that I study the schools, I see there's a lot of benefits to a lot of them. And again, I think it's just about finding out what's gonna work best for you and then go for it. Next question. What does chiropractic think about vitamin injections? I don't know, you'll have to ask chiropractic. No, I'm kidding. We're full of it today. But what do I think of vitamin injections? I mean, look, vitamin injections aren't chiropractic. However, I know there's a lot of benefits 2 vitamin injections. I personally haven't done much research into vitamin injections, so I can't give much input to this question. However, I do know a doctor, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She was on the Joe Rogan podcast a bunch. She is like a researcher, and she just made a paper on vitamin C, and I believe she goes really deep into vitamin injections there. So I'll link her paper below, and maybe you can check it out and maybe do some research on it yourself and see. I'm sure it's a good thing. What is the best thing about knowing that I will be a chiropractor? The best thing, of course, is knowing that I'm going to be to heal and transform the lives of so many people, but the best part is naturally without the use of drugs or surgery. That's what I'm all about, healing people naturally and making a difference in people's lives. That's what drives me. Where do I want to have my clinic after graduation? To be honest, I don't know. I have a few places in mind that I'm narrowing down, but honestly, I'm letting God guide that decision for me. All right, so Bailey Harris, 2019. What's up, Bailey? She asked, what's the most challenging class you've personally had to face in your studies? Interesting question. I think I talked about this before, but the classes that I don't do so well in are the classes that I'm least interested in. And there's a direct correlation between the classes that I do well in are often the classes that directly apply to chiropractic, that directly apply to what I'm interested in and I can actually work on. And usually I found that a lot of the classes that I do well in are sometimes more difficult classes, like in school now, pathology, a lot of the physiology classes. I do my best work in those classes because it directly applies to the work that I'm going to be doing as a chiropractor. The classes that I have the most challenge with are the classes that don't necessarily apply to what I'm going to do, like biochemistry or microbiology. I think this stuff's important to a degree, but I'm not going to be a microbiologist, so why do I need to know this stuff for? And I think that can deter me in some of the classes, and it makes it more difficult for me to actually learn. So I'm big on inspiration. One thing I'm learning from is just to do the work anyway, whether you feel like it or not, whether you're passionate about it or not. Just do it because you strive for excellence in everything you do. And again, that's a part about having your why. I think when times get tough, when you don't feel motivated to do the work, you come back to your why, and your why is going to propel you forward on that mission. So I hope that helps. All right, Dr. Ravi. What's up, Dr. Ravi? Got another question here from Ellen, another Brazilian. Hello, hello. She asked, what is your best and worst part of chiropractic school? Honestly, this is gonna go again what I answered with Bailey. The best part about chiropractic school is learning chiropractic. The worst part about chiropractic school is learning stuff that isn't chiropractic, but it's all about it, and you gotta learn all of it, and all of it is important. So let's see, got some more questions here. Dr. Jeremiah asked, he's got a few questions here, so we'll break these down. How did you find your best study habits? How much time do you dedicate to studying and a social life? And has the online delivery of education made things harder or easier in terms of grasping the knowledge? So let's break this down. The first thing, how did you find your best study habits? I don't think study habits are something that you necessarily find. It's about just figuring out what works best for you and just rolling with it. However, I think in building that framework for your study habits, comes to mind, there's 3 things here that I think every student needs to have, and then you just find out what works best for you within that. Number 1 is your calendar. You gotta have a calendar. Number 2 is you gotta have some system of like an assignment tracker. And number 3 is you have to have some system for storing your notes in for all your classes. And so I'm a technology person because, I mean, come on, we're all in technology now. So I like to use stuff that's cloud-based. So I use Google Calendar, I use Todoist, I use Microsoft OneDrive because they're all cloud-based and it works well for me. But ultimately, find those 3 things, and then honestly, it builds the framework for yourself, and then you just find out what works, and you just go and you take action. How much time do I dedicate to studying in a social life? Again, I talked about that earlier about just being consistent. 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe max, is all it takes, and you'll do very well. But I do want to touch on this. You mentioned the word social life here, and I know the word social life means a lot of things for a lot of different people. However, I want people to be very careful about that because I see it where some students they're in a professional program, let's take chiropractic school for example, and they treat it like they did in undergrad. Just because we're immature in some ways, we're still young and we're here to have fun. and you make new friends and stuff, and you want to do the same thing you did in undergrad. You want to go out and party and have fun. And again, I know some people don't do the partying thing. I think it's good for everyone to go out and have fun and have a social life, but be careful with it, because know why you're here in the first place. You're paying all this money to be in school and to be a student. That's the first thing. But the biggest thing is, like, this time is such a golden window of opportunity for you to really learn and grow and transform as a person. So take full advantage of that and don't waste your time socializing and hanging out with people and having fun. Again, I think there's a time and a place, and you gotta have that balance, right? But be careful with it. Be careful with it, especially because a lot of the friends you meet, most of them you're barely gonna talk to once you're out in practice anyway. So be focused and focus on yourself and really transform during that time. But always have that balance as well. And the last thing here, has the online delivery made it easier during this time? Double-edged sword with this. I mean, for one spectrum, I'm supposed to be in clinic right now, so I'm supposed to be seeing patients and adjusting people, and I can't do that obviously now, so that kind of stinks. But on the other end of the spectrum, I'm able to be a lot more efficient with my schoolwork. You know, I'm able to get through classes a lot faster. I personally like the online learning process better, just because I personally like to learn things on my own. And I think sometimes online lectures, for lack of a better word, can be a waste of my time. It's not most efficient for me in terms of how I like to study. So I personally do a lot better in my lecture classes online. Like, I love it. I love it. I'm doing very well in all my classes now, and I really like that. But obviously I miss the hands-on nature of being in campus, and obviously being able to see patients. That part stinks. So it's a double-edged sword, and I'm ready to get back as soon as possible. But we'll see how long this goes on for. All right, moving on. Anthony, what's up, Anthony? He asked, I find a lot of people saying that chiros specialize in the spine. That's true. So are they less effective for issues like shoulders, hips, and knees? Okay, so chiros specialize in the spine, but what about the extremities? So let's first answer this, but why do chiropractors specialize in the spine in the first place? Well, a few reasons. The main reason why we specialize in the spine is because that's where the nervous system is housed, right? It sits in the skull, extends down through the brainstem, down through the atlas bone. You have the extension of the brainstem, which is your spinal cord, and every single level in your spine exits all those nerves that control every muscle, tissue, cell, and organ in your entire body. Now, why we place an emphasis on the spine is because all of the nerves that are in there, and we know that any joint in your body, including the spine, whenever there's dysfunction in that joint, it's going to alter the proprioception to that joint. And we know that proprioception is important for the overall neural integration of our brains and how our brains are wired and mapped. And so we know that proprioception, or the function of our joints, are an integral part in the overall health and proper functioning of our entire nervous system. So that's one reason. In the spine as well, we know that if there's damage and inflammation and structural damage within the spine, it can create direct compression and irritation to the neural structures exiting at that level, which obviously will have affect the nerves that way. And the main way why we also focus on the spine here is because it's a central kinetic chain link, right? And so what I mean by that is, let's take an example. So for the kinetic chain, for people that know, it's how basically the body is interconnected with one another, and how one part of the body will influence another part of the body, because everything is interconnected. So let's bring an example. Let's look at, say, the pelvis. If the pelvis is not level properly, it's going to create instability in the lumbar spine. Okay, now that instability is going to travel throughout the entire spine, because the body will begin to compensate for that lack of stability through something called the righting reflex. Okay, so we have all this instability and compensation throughout the entire spine. Let's look at the thoracic spine. That's going to alter the rotation component of the thoracic spine, which will directly influence the scapulothoracic junction, which is how the scapula articulates with the spine. Okay, now if the scapula joint is not functioning properly, that means the shoulder joint will not function properly, because it articulates with the scapula. We don't have proper motion in our shoulder joint. It's obviously going to affect all the structures in the elbow and the structures in the wrist. And so it's important that we have that kinetic chain balanced. Now, if we look in the lower extremity, if the pelvis isn't level, that's going to affect how we're weight bearing, because our lower extremity, it's weight bearing. And so now for pelvis to stay rotated or unlevel, it's going to create abnormal, we're not going to weight bear properly. We're going to have improper dissipation of forces throughout our knee joint and our ankle joint. And that's obviously going to put abnormal stress and loading on our body. Okay? And so I'm going to throw something else at you here. So the reason why we focus on the spine is those different reasons right there. Okay, now I want to throw something else out, because how the kinetic chain works from the spine to the shoulder to the elbow, it also works in reverse. So something in the elbow can also influence something in the shoulder, which influences the scapula, which can affect the spine as well. So the way that I think about it is it's important for the entire body to be integrated. So yes, chiropractors specialize in the spine, but we're also holistic, and I believe in a holistic approach. We recognize that the body is all interconnected. And so I don't believe in just looking at it from such a segmented structure, because that's what a lot of professions do, not good or bad, but they focus on one thing. And I think, well, we can't just look at the spine without looking at how the shoulder's functioning, because if we have shoulder dysfunction, we'll always have a dysfunctional spine. You see what I'm saying? So what I believe in a holistic perspective here is we look at the cause of the problem and we fix that for overall function and health. And so that's why I look at the extremities, or I will look in and adjust extremities, because I believe it's all important to have everything in balance. So hope that helps, Anthony. I got a question from Caro. Caro asks, how often do you recommend studying on the weekends? How do you balance your weekends between studying and having time for yourself, friends, and etc.? And so I think this really goes back when I was talking about that proper balance and consistency before. I think the same things on the weekends. Now, I'm gonna burst maybe some of your bubbles, but the reality is that you're gonna have to work and study on the weekends. Maybe not every weekend, but most weekends you're gonna have to, especially during times of midterms and finals. You're just gonna have to, it's part of being a student, especially in this professional program, you're gonna have to put in work on the weekends. However, I will put an emphasis that if you follow the consistency plan, right, where you're consistent with your study from day one onwards, then you're not gonna, I do believe that you can limit the amount of time that you have to study on weekends so you can have more time to go hike, hang out with friends and family on the weekends. I think that's all important. So in terms of how you wanna handle that in the weekends, I think do what's best for you. I think what works for me, now I travel a lot on the weekends, and so my kind of schedule is sort of crazy with that, but whenever, let's say I'm here at home, I'll study maybe in the weekends, you know, so like say on a Saturday, I'll study from say 8 to 12, and then I'll have the rest of my day free. And so I think maybe look at it that way. You can have that balance, but just have that time block where you're gonna get your work done and get it done. And so yeah, that's really all I have for that one. Puffy asks, why did I choose to focus on Gonstead? So again, for me, I said every technique works. It's about finding what technique works best for you. For me, Gonstead resonated with me the most when I first came to school here and was learning about it. Few chiropractors that influenced me to want to become a chiropractor were Dr. Rahim and Dr. Ian. Watching their videos really solidified chiropractic for me, and I was like, look, if I can do what those guys do, I'm all in on it. And then I didn't even know they were Gonstead until I came into school and I learned more about this Gonstead thing, and I was like, oh wait, that's what those guys did. And they like inspired me to be here. That's pretty cool. And so I looked more deeper into it. I went to a club the first quarter, and spot on, because it really hits on my belief of proper biomechanics and spinal biomechanics and how it influences the rest of the body. And so to me, it just made sense, and I went for it, and obviously it's working well for me. Another question on Gonstead, let's see, we got one from Rick. Rick asked, do you believe in an ideal spine? Does Gonstead speak to this, and how? Best wishes. And so, ideal spine, so let's talk about what we think an ideal spine is. I think the word ideal spine probably means healthy spine, right? So what does it mean to have a healthy spine? Well, I think it's important as a healthy spine that everything's functioning properly, everything's moving properly, everything has its proper function, and that you don't have any interference to the nervous system that we talked about before. With the term ideal spine, it doesn't necessarily mean that the spine has to work a particular way. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the spine has to have an exact curvature to it, or that there can't be any rotation or twisting to it to have an ideal spine, because the body is amazing at compensating and adapting to its environment. So I believe in having an ideal spine. It's not that we want a perfectly straight spine. It's not that we want perfect curvatures, although they're all important. What's most important is that the spine is functioning to that individual. And that takes the experience and knowledge and understanding of the spine and how it's working and what's normal and what's not normal in each individual, and getting a healthy spine for that person. And so I know what Gonstead speaks to this. He always says, look, there are healthy straight spines, there are healthy curvy spines. What ultimately determines A healthy spine is the absence of nerve pressure. And so as the chiropractors, we align the spine to make sure there's proper function within it and that there isn't nerve pressure in the spine comprising our nervous system. And so, let's see here. We got another question from DC to B, also asked, what's the most challenging thing I've experienced so far in school? This. Honestly, this, I mean, I hesitated for a moment whenever I learned that we're gonna be online all this quarter and that I wouldn't be going into clinic. And I really stopped for a second and I was like, wow, I'm not gonna be able to go into clinic. I already had a list of patients that I was gonna be seeing in clinic. Already talked with them, like I was excited to start and get ready to go, and then this came up and obviously I couldn't go in clinic. And so they're doing an online virtual clinic where they have online case studies and things. And to me, I really had to make the decision whether I wanted to do this online clinic or if I wanted to hold off and wait and do clinic in person. But the only downside of doing that is it would push me back a quarter from graduating, and actually determine maybe potentially extending that a little bit and graduating later. But ultimately I decided, you know what, we're gonna stick with the online clinic and go through it. And so kind of navigating this has always been interesting, as I'm sure it is for all of you guys as well. And then I believe this is the last question, which is crazy. We got a question from Mario. He asked, how do I feel about applying movement-based rehab? Very important. Or are you leaning more towards manual? Basically, how do I feel about giving patients exercises? So here's my thoughts. I think exercises are important. I think everyone needs to be doing spinal exercises, or spinal flossing as I call it. It's all important. However, I think it has to be a secondary thing to what's the most important thing. The most important thing for me is is my ability to analyze and adjust the person's spine. That's what I do as a chiropractor. But exercises, just like nutrition or exercises, are also an integral thing to get that person healthy and well. And so I think it's important to do exercises. However, I'm not gonna spend time away from doing what's most important for me in treating and adjusting patients to giving exercises and doing things in my office. So I'll probably definitely recommend things to do. I'll probably refer them to specialists who can spend that time necessary for those people, and I will absolutely give people exercises and things that they can do at home that's obviously gonna better their overall health and get them better sooner and faster. So, hope that helped everyone. I hope you guys got something out of it. And like I said, if you would like me to go in more depth or have more conversation about some of the questions we got here, I'll certainly be glad to engage with you guys in the comments below and maybe make another one of these things here in the near future. So hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I need a drink of water. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out. Now hold up real fast. You didn't honestly think that we're done with this Q&A, did ya? I mean, now given I did say we were done, and if this was a regular Q&A, then this video would already be over. But this is no regular Q&A. This is the ultimate chiropractic school Q&A. So we're gonna keep this train going with a little bit of encore action. And I'm gonna share you guys with one last little message. We're gonna go back to this and answer some more questions for you guys that stuck along, because I love you guys and I'm here to answer your questions, and we got a lot of gold content to end this video out. You guys are gonna really appreciate it. This is the dessert, the cherry on top for those who stuck around this long. You're really gonna enjoy this. So I'm gonna share a message that I got from Quentin. I already got permission to share his story on here, which is awesome. And so I want to share this stuff, and so he sent me this really long question, just kind of giving the backdrop of where he's at and stuff. He's in undergrad right now. He's doing the 3+3 program. For those that don't know what the 3+3 program is, you do 3 years of undergraduate study, and you have a partnership with the chiropractic school, with the university. And so you do 3 years of undergrad, and then you transition doing the 3 years of chiropractic school. So it actually shaves off a year of your studying, because they kind of blend your undergraduate studies into the chiropractic school. So you get your undergrad degree, your first year of chiropractic school, while you also complete your first year of chiropractic school. And they kind of expedite you on this expedited track to graduate sooner. It can be a great program for a lot of people who feel ready and confident to breeze through the program. And especially if they already have that foundation, they know they want to be a chiropractor, they know what school they want to go to, because you got to get into it before you come into your undergrad. And I suspect that the 3+3 program, it's already at a lot of universities and it's spreading like wildfire. I suspect in the next few years that it's going to be more and more common, and a lot more students are going to do that. But anyway, he shared his chiropractic story here, and we talked about your chiropractic why and the importance of your story, and I want to show you guys why this is important here. So let me find where he talks. So he talks about what inspired me to be a chiropractor was about 5 years ago. There was a sports injury I had. I lost function of my right wrist and was not able to move it for 6 months. At the time, my mom was going to a chiropractor, and I decided to visit him to see what he could do for me. Before, I was seeing a hand specialist and was getting little to no results from it. That day, when I went to the chiropractor's office, he had told me that my carpal bones were very close together. He did one adjustment to my wrist that day and immediately had 95% of his wrist function back. Damn. I remember looking at him like he was some sort of god or something. Yeah, that'll happen. I just remember crying in the car because this man had just saved my life. This is important, guys, and it's such an amazing story, Quentin. Thank you for sharing that, because we all have that chiropractic story. You may not have a big wow experience like Quentin had, but I promise you guys there was something that led you to this point of wanting to be a chiropractor. Maybe it was a past experience with a chiropractor, or something you read, or something you inherently feel, or values that you have. Keep a hold of that as you're going through this program, whether in undergrad, high school, even while you're in chiropractic school. Keep that feeling you had, because I guarantee you that experience Quentin had with that one chiropractor that completely changed his life, he'll always keep a hold of that, and because of that, he'll now be that great chiropractor for someone else. And that's the big thing, the transformation that you have through yourself, through chiropractic, you'll want that in other people. And even if you didn't have a transformational experience in chiropractic, you don't gotta make one up. But keep hold of that fire of what drives you, you know? And always keep hold of that. So anywho, he goes on, he's always wanted to work in the medical field, of course, and always believed in natural healing, of course. I was glad that I found chiropractic because it gave him a new outlook and passion to pursue. Of course it did, and never lose sight of that. And so he says the Gonstead technique is by far his favorite technique. That's super awesome, man, and something he's passionate about. I'm glad that you're already figuring that out for yourself. And he goes on, saying I'm an inspiration to him and all that. What I'm doing is awesome. Well, hey, I'm glad it is, Quinn, and hope that I'm able to help so many of you. Like, this is truly amazing. I love what I'm able to do to help so many of you. This is really, really cool. So, I want to get to his questions he has here. We're going to end it out with this, a little special bonus for you guys. So let's go ahead and let's bang these things out, all right? So we've got a few questions here. What apartments did you find best and most reasonably priced? So when talking about apartments, he's talking specifically about in Marietta at Life University, just thinking about coming here. But when you're looking at apartments, the biggest thing that I can say, and this goes with everything, is try to minimize your costs as low as possible. So that way you graduate with the least amount of debt, or at least you have as much savings as you possibly can when you're leaving here. It's so important. I think it's also important that we humble ourselves now while we're students and learning before we actually get out in the professional world. I think it's so important to humble yourself because look, we all have desires. We all want material things in this world. It's a part of being human. But I think that process of humbling yourself and saying no to things is important in your overall growth. So when you're looking for apartments, try to choose the most reasonably priced option that's obviously going to give you that balance that you want. You're always going to rationalize with yourself. Like I rationalized big time when I was looking for an apartment that I had to live alone. Now, did I actually have to live alone? No. And I recommend for most people that they get roommates. I mean, you can get a much nicer place with a significantly lower rent with 3 or 4 roommates. Get a house together, 3 roommates, and pay a fraction of the cost of what you get with a 1-bedroom apartment. But here I am with my own because I was like, man, I love living alone. You know, I do so much better without a roommate, and I can be alone. The biggest thing was I can be alone to shoot these videos. You know, I don't have to worry about people around. Anyway, you get the point. But nonetheless, try to minimize those costs as much as possible. So with the apartment, try to navigate that. And I'll say this, that if you're thinking about coming to Life, I'll absolutely talk with you one-on-one, and we'll make sure, you know, if you have questions about where to live and where some good places are to live, definitely let me know. We'll have that conversation and we'll get you hooked up for sure. So next question, what is the class difficulty like? The big thing with chiropractic school in terms of the next level, you gotta think it's a doctorate level program, so of course it's gonna be significantly harder than undergrad, so get that straight. But the hardest part isn't necessarily the class difficulty, because it's no different than the transformation from going from elementary school to middle school to high school to undergrad. You know, like each stage, yeah, it was harder, but whenever you're going through it, it didn't really seem much harder. Like we always thought high school was gonna be this big thing. you know, and then you get into high school and you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then undergrad and college, like, now given, I get like some people struggle more than others, but once you're handling the beast, it's not so bad. And so it's the same thing with this. It's a little bit daunting at first and you may struggle a little bit, but once you get it narrowed down, you'll be just fine. The hardest part with the difficulty though is the sheer volume of work that you have, which is why I'm always talking about optimizing your schedule, about productivity, about getting everything in line now in undergrad. Because now you might be like, what's the importance of being so strict with my time management? Because your time is gonna be so valuable once you're in school. So get it down now so you'll be a rock star once you start out. An example is I'm currently taking 31.5 credits right now this quarter. Some of you are like, what? I'm taking like 12 to 15 in undergrad. It's like what you take. Yeah, so it's like double that. You're basically taking double the amount of classes and they're doctorate level classes. So not to freak you guys out or anything, you guys are gonna do great, I promise you that. But keep that in mind that it's the volume. So practice the time management, practice your productivity, practice your work ethic and get that stuff down. Because I tell you, the more you get that stuff down now and the more mistakes you make, the more you figure that and hone that in for yourself now, the better off you're gonna be. And so he asked about the Gonstead class, have I had that yet? Nope. So at Life University, they offer the Gonstead class in the curriculum. It's actually a required class in the curriculum that you take 9th quarter. I'm taking it next quarter in my 8th quarter because I'm bringing it down so that way I can take it before I get into outpatient clinic so I can practice full Gonstead in outpatient clinic, which is gonna be super awesome. However, you can learn literally the Gonstead class first quarter just by coming to Gonstead Club. And just like any other technique, they have the actual classes you can take for the technique, but if you just go to the club, you'll learn all this stuff in that technique. So in Gonstead Club, you'll learn a lot about Gonstead technique, you'll get hands-on experience, so much stuff you'll learn in your first quarter. And not that I'm plugging anything here, but at Life it's really important because the curriculum is actually based on a lot of Gonstead technique, believe it or not. And so a lot of the things we teach you in the Gonstead Club directly applies to a lot of the things you're learning in other classes. For example, there's a quarter you take, I believe in 3rd quarter, it's called Spinal Biomechanics. I think it's a 3rd quarter class you take. Literally everything you learn first quarter in Gonstead Club, you'll learn for that class. Like literally everything you need to know, you'll learn first quarter in Gonstead Club to ace that class. And that's just one example. There's several other classes that a lot of material you'll learn just from coming from clubs. So that's a little experience, not just Gonstead Club's the only club you should attend. You should try out all of them, but that's an example of the importance of attending good technique clubs or good clubs in general, because you'll learn so much stuff that not only you'll learn in school, yes, but obviously the most important point is that it's gonna advance you as a chiropractor. And last thing, or a couple things, how are the campus resources? They're great. I know I don't use them. But they're great. I think the biggest thing is obviously the clubs and the organizations that are there. Take full advantage of that. And I know Life is philosophy based, but will you learn how to correct all the portions of the body, not just the spine? My man Anthony asked that question before. You already know the answer. Everything is interconnected, it's not segmented. You can't just look at one part of the picture. When you're talking about health, when you're talking something complex as a human being, you gotta look at the full frame. And that's what I'm all about, whether it's Gonstead or any other technique with you. We're chiropractors, we're holistic, we look at the whole body approach. Why? Because what separates us from anything else, yeah, it's that we're natural, yeah, it's that we're holistic and we have different philosophies and ideas on things, but the biggest thing is that we look for the root cause of the problem and we address that. So that way the body can heal itself and we can function optimally to the best of our abilities. And that, my friends, is the Ultimate Chiropractic School Q&A. Or wait, should we do a part 2? Yeah, we're gonna do a part 2.
Payday came early, no worries, a buzz around, maybe burning to put the speed in a hurry and watch them underlay. Hopping on a coast, I'm needing like 2 bags, no GPS where we go, 3 figures up on a dash. Going hit that new town road, skirt the Lambo, 600 horses up in the bag.